I glared at the Yukandi ambassador with the most deathly expression I could muster. I looked him right in the eye. He, of course, being a diplomat, glared right back. He had no idea just how dangerous his new position was. He grunted at me. "Is there a reason for this conduct?" he barked. "I do not want to be late." "I'm here to provide a dire warning, Yukandian. A dire and sincere warning you may regard as insane, but it's something we all must know if we are ever to be a part of this confederacy, and the benefits it brings," I said plainly. "Do not threaten us, Saranian. We have the largest army in the galaxy. There is a reason we were invited. I do not care about your armies!" I bellowed loudly, and closed the distance too fast for him to react. "This is not a threat. It is a dire warning. This will be your first council meeting, the official welcoming ceremony. As a consequence, the Terran Federation will be there to greet you, along with the rest of the Confederacy." He looked at me nervously. I was right up in his face. Are they the enforcers or secret police or something?" he asked. "No, they are small ape creatures with no natural weaponry, hailing from a Class II death world called Earth. They have no real talents beyond the rest of the galaxy, and represent the physical embodiment of the concept of average. They are nothing special," I stated, monotone, almost robotically. "That doesn't sound dangerous. A Class II. We hail from a Class 7 death world." I scoffed and stood back. That's what the Imbakai said before the ambassador vomited out his own heart when talking to a human. That's what the Juhais said shortly before one of their ambassadors started attempting to tear out his own spine. That's what the Combinants once said before their entire faith was vanished from the galaxy, and in the worst and messiest mass suicide in recorded history. All because of humans. Sure, keep your ego. It will hasten your death. I barked at him. "What are you implying? What act of war are these threats?" he said. I rapidly approached him again, and glared at him uncomfortably close. "I shall make this simple. I like you, Yukandian. You are a great race with a greater empire, and I shall be looking forward to an excellent partnership. That is why I must warn you. We in the galaxy have one simple universal rule. Do not lie when in the presence of a human," I said plainly, looking directly into his soul. The delegation shared concerned, confused glances. An awkward moment of silence followed until eventually one of the delegates raised his hand like a child in a school classroom. Why?" "Do you believe in magic, counselor?" I asked. "Stupid nonsense," he snapped back. "Well, I guess you are a lost cause then. Maybe when you are more open to talks after your first medical recess. See you soon," I said with a sly grin and headed to the main chamber. The introduction ceremony was jubilant and filled with the traditional genital-sucking congratulations and bloviating boisterousness. 4 ambassadors from our new arrivals in their council pod waiting for their chance to speak. The speeches for the introduction were bloviating in the way that politicians usually do, but they were, however, somewhat blander than usual. During this process, I looked into the audience chambers and used my micro-camera drone to look about. I understood why the speech was so bland and neutral. There were at least 27 humans in the room now, each from their own factions, or as mercenaries with alien ambassadors. I chuckled and made sure the medical team was ready and waiting for the inevitable. They indeed were, but were rather confused as to why. The Ugandan ambassador and his cohorts stood from their seats as they were introduced by the speaker. They pressed buttons, and their council pod hovered into the arena and began speaking. The speech began. A predictable one filled with military jargon, buzzwords, and the usual friendly but we are better than you nonsense that all of them, yes, even I myself, used when first starting out. The rest of the council rolled eyes and twitched eye stalks, simply wandering about inside their own head while pretending to pay attention until the speech was done. Then, the first cough. The sound of the ambassador literally choking on his words as my warning predictably came true. I looked in the crowd. I saw most ambassadors and security staff give concerned glances, but some of the faces in the crowd were smiling, chuckling to themselves, and thinking about what to do as they realized what was going on, too. The Ugandan ambassador excused himself and resumed his speech. I still have no idea what he said. I wasn't paying much attention to it, just gauging the crowd's reaction. The speech continued, and again the coughing resumed as well. But this time he coughed so badly he spat some blood onto his console. He looked at the result and gasped for breath. I could see the fear in his eyes. He looked over at me. I smiled at him, leaned forward, and spoke into my own broadcaster. Calling for a short recess following an apparent medical emergency. Recall Pod 52, medical team on standby, I said, my words heard by all present. Recess 20 minutes! The Chamberlain bellowed and slammed his gavel, resuming to his own pod to tend to matters himself. The meeting quickly adjourned, and the pod for the Ugandan ambassador automatically retreated to its charging station. I, wearing the smuggest smile possible, left my pod and headed to the corridor where the action was taking place. There, the ambassador was being checked over by the medical team I had earmarked for this situation, and almost immediately a point of suspicion was cast on me. I simply let it continue, knowing full well we were still on the security feed, and the entire delegation, humans included, were still watching. The ambassador spotted me, charged at me, and slammed me against a wall, lifting me up off the ground. You did this! What poison did you use on me? He barked. I was sore for certain, but I simply smiled and waited for the effect to hit again. It was you who poisoned me! I could feel as though my own body was attempting to vomit out my own heart! What kind of evil chemical nonsense are you? He could not continue and coughed, retching as his body convulsed in agony, dropping me from the surge in pain, and his violet-colored blood splattered against the wall. The medics immediately tended to him, forcing him to stay down and give him painkillers and other such things. It was almost amusing. Almost. I had to admit I quite liked the Ugandans and hoped they would stick around. I needed to teach him this lesson quickly. Are you finished, or are you going to listen? I said, and quietly disabled the camera feed for this particular area, telling the crowd it was for community standards. This was, after all, publicly broadcasted. We didn't want the little ones becoming nervous now, did we? What is going on? He said, retching from the pain. Good, you are listening. Here is our number one rule. When in the presence of a human, speak only the truth, or you will be condemned to speak only silence, I said simply, and watched the few around me glare at me quizzically. Why? I don't understand. Then let me explain. Did you notice something odd about the Chamberlain's speech? How unusually bland it was. How it was so vague and misdirecting. Did you notice how odd it was for political speech to be so empty? Shallow, even. Not platitudes, but more redirections. Did you notice that? I asked. He took a moment to breathe and looked at me. Well, yes, actually. I did find it rather odd. That's the human curse, the magic I spoke of. Why you are here on the ground writhing in agony like your heart just attempted to leap out of your own skull? Do not lie in front of humans. That is the curse, I said. He attempted to ask again, opening his mouth to question. Do not speak. I will tell you how and why momentarily. I just need your absolute word that you will follow that rule. Because if you lie again, that will be the last breath you take. It's always 3 times. 1 little cough to say stop it. 2nd cough to warn you that you're crossing a line. 3rd cough to cause enough pain to tell you to shut up. The 4th one will be your last breath. Say it. Promise. Follow the rule. Do not lie in front of humans, I commanded, speaking with more authority on the matter than I thought I could muster. He took some deep breaths and considered the pain in his body. I will not lie in front of humans, he said. Good. Not just pretty words, I can guarantee that. The voidish feeling where an organ should be is probably a guarantee for that too. Now, we can talk plainly, the humans won't know, and I would prefer they remain willingly ignorant of their capability. Understand? I asked. He simply nodded, accepting a drink from the medics. Here's the story we know, at least as far as we think we know, based on what we can find. Way back in the early days of human space exploration, something called the 21st century, humanity was in a state of turmoil. Nearly every city-state was in a state of civil unrest in some way or form. Politicians back in those days were nothing short of subsapient scum, no matter what side they were on. Lies were rampant, and there was just so much stupid that the entire planet teetered on the brink of civilizational collapse. Then, one day, during the 4th decade of the 21st century, or the aught-40s as they called it, somehow, someway, by someone we genuinely don't know, a magic curse was placed on the entire species, I said. He looked at me, blinking, staring like I was a madman explaining how the universe was shaped like a toilet or something. The curse effectively made it lethal to lie too often, for too long. One day, millions of politicians began vomiting up their own hearts, or ejecting blood from their every orifice before dropping dead. The curse spread to religious leaders, then activist groups, then the common man. Within the first week of the curse being active, 1 billion humans, a full eighth of the planet's population at the time, died from lying too much. The only reason it stopped was because a leader from the cult, or organization responsible for casting the curse in the first place, appeared on television and basically told them what was going on. Fatalities continued, of course, but nowhere near as bad as the first week. The humans actually thought it was a bioweapon at first. I explained calmly, even though I knew every word was insane, but true. Magical curse? Seriously? Well, how else can it be explained? The priest responsible for explaining the situation didn't know himself. He just said, them's the rules, and that's the thing. And he didn't cough out his own lungs, so there you go. How can one explain it anyway, except some kind of magic or supernatural force? Never sets off biohazard equipment, no matter the capability. We have tested this so many times. It always happens. If a human hears you speak a lie, you start the process of your soul becoming so disgusted with the fact you told an untruth that it begins forcibly removing its mortal chains, to its own detriment. At least, that's the best we can tell. The Combinants learned that. The Imbakai learned that fact as well. I learned that. I nearly died during my first speech, too. You can still see the blood smears on my seat, I said flatly, looking at him with worry. He leaned against the wall and had more water to drink. He thought about it a bit. Starting to make sense, really. I've seen some reports about humans and the Terran Confederacy. Starting to understand why I thought they were so outlandish. So let me get this right. A faction of humans became so angry at the state of the world, they cast a magic curse of some kind, we don't know, and this magic curse causes them to tell only the truth or else they die horribly, he asked. That's pretty much it. At least as far as we know. I've mused on this carefully through the years with actual humans present, with no consequences besides the human raising an eyebrow and wishing he could speak our language. It ignores culture and language borders. Can speak anything. If you lie, the result is the same. So, it seems that is the best, if only, explanation we have. We can't think of anything else except the literal actions of a divine entity, And we really don't want to think about that, I replied. Okay. Tell me what happened to those who failed to adhere to this unwritten rule. His breathing and speech were returning to normal. The Commandants was the largest religious faction in the galaxy once. Humans challenged them to debate when the priests came calling to spread their faith and collect tithes from unbelievers. The debate was a disaster and didn't last more than an hour before the great Tsar began convulsing and his spine ripped itself out. Then they blamed the human for assassination. Accusers likewise suffered bloody and painful deaths. The Commandants attempted more debates and tried collecting more tithes. Each encounter ended the same. Humans begging them to go away for fear of lives lost, and the Zealots effectively condemning themselves to an early grave. The death toll was worse than the Great Plague of the last era, I said. That explains why the humans have no real religious doctrines, choosing silent faith instead. They don't know the answer, and physically can't preach their opinion for fear of death. Gods, the misery they must be in, to not know and not be able to ask for fear of death, he said. Indeed. Humans suffer more than we could know by their own rules, cast due to their own sins. It's why they are at the top of the food chain, not due to military strength or diplomatic prowess, but due to the fact that despite this, they still carry on looking for answers, I remarked plainly. Everyone in the vicinity shared glances, some of shame, others of pride, or shared concern. That explains why their entire military strength is public knowledge. They have to display it, because if we ask, they have to say. So they just tell it like it is. So, how did the Mbakai lose their spines? He was stable now. The effect had worn off, and he was now out of the danger zone. Slavers. The Mbakai were slavers. Humans hate slavery and condemn it. When the Mbakai attempted a council seat, the humans protested. This led to a debate, and the Mbakai lost. That debate is why not only slavery is illegal, but also why the Mbakai are no longer slavers. They're scared not only of human military action. The humans also won the debate. They were very articulate about the concept. The Mbakai were not, and several ambassadors died from the arguments they posed. I said smugly. Well, understandable. Slavery is abhorrent, I'll give them that. Seems the universe agrees too. But what about the Juhai? The Juhai attempted covert operations. War without a declaration against humans. When humanity found out about their actions, the humans challenged them. The Juhai emperors and commanders vehemently denied the accusations. The throne room that was once their command center now serves as a memorial site for their entire leadership caste when the curse hit them. I can still hear the cracking of the bones. To this day, I can't stand snapping noises, I said with a disgusted shudder. Everyone who was there and saw what happened likewise shuddered alongside me. Each of us tipped a hat or article of clothing in memoriam. Is there any way to really negotiate with humans without risking death? He asked. No, just be honest. They like it when people are honest anyway, but there are loopholes. Serious lies like, we aren't going to invade you. When you're going to do that, we'll get you killed. Small lies like, no, you don't look fat in that dress, or Santa will be coming soon. Go to bed or you get no presents. Or, no, there isn't a giant spider on your head, you will be fine. Or lies like, no, your arm isn't missing, it's right here. You'll learn the nuances soon enough. Humans aren't as complex as they seem once you understand their behavioral patterns. Small things to prevent panic or keep children under control. Myths and folk tales. So long as what you're saying is meant to be helpful, or at least some variant of the truth behind it, will not be punished. Serious stuff, Stuff that can cause harm or break empires. That's the bad kind of lies. That kind of thing. I said. So, technically, I can lie to the humans. I just can't lie about things that would cause serious damage. Like, no, there isn't a fire in the building. Just stop someone from panicking and making the fire worse, he asked. Exactly. See? You learn fast. When not in the presence of humans, lie as much as you like about whatever you like. Hell, it's become a game to most council member states to have private lying conventions just to get it all out of our systems. That's kind of funny, to be frank, but discussion for another day. It only counts when a human is present, I remarked, helping him back onto his feet. Thank you. I think I'm ready to go back in there and finish this. I have to relay this information to the Emperor before humans get too close. This whole thing explains why human market prices are so competitive. They can't afford to be scummy about it. So much about the species is making more sense. And the more I know, the more I feel sorry for them. He straightened himself out and used pockets and patches of leather to hide the blood on his uniform. It is also why the galaxy at large holds such great reverence for humanity as a whole. For them to hold this great a burden upon their shoulders is something that takes immeasurable resolve. That's why there are so few humans outside of their own space. And so they don't hurt us more than they already do, but we insist they join aliens in the galaxy at large for reasons that should be obvious, I said with a sly, knowing smirk. He blinked and likewise managed a small smirk. Law enforcement. Simply being in the room, we know if a criminal is lying. If we are careful, we can get confessions or locations of evidence too easily. A military. Put a human in the presence of a prisoner with intel on a military target and watch them squirm. So much potential. I like it. I knew you would. Now come, it is time for your swearing in to resume. Let us hope you are as good an ambassador as I know you are, and see if you can give a rousing speech off the cuff.